again, you can make yourself comfortable wherever you want to be. We're going to do the afternoon auditorium. Anything else you need or I can get you?
When I did CPE at Peru, Anne was on some kind of committee.
Oh, really? So you've met her before?
Yours as well.
Feeling good? Mm-hmm. Great. I'm just going to... All right. Shana Tova, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all for making it or making it back. We have somehow gotten to the point in the day where it actually doesn't feel like there's enough time in Yom Kippur left, which is maybe I'm the only one who feels that way, but yeah, the afternoon of Yom Kippur holds a special place where it's just really trying to make the most, after we got hopefully that little bit of a nap or a rest, taking the rest of the time and really trying to get the most out of each and every moment that we can. And so I'm glad you all are here. I'm really glad that Reverend Antonin is here as well, and will join me in a couple minutes to talk about the book of Jonah. But before we get to the book of Jonah, we are going to pick up essentially right where we left off this morning in the Machzor. So Alex is going to welcome us back and kind of build off the meditation. We're going to sing Return Again one more time all together, because if there's any song you ever return to, it's that one. And we'll share it all together, whether you're in the meditation or not. And then we will continue on page 361 with the opening of the ark.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
And I'll invite you to open your Machzors to page 361, and we rise as the ark is opened. Oh, we're getting you involved right off the bat. Scott. Thank you. Yasher Koach, Alex. You may be seated. So there are two options for Yom Kippur afternoon Torah reading. The traditional option picks up right after where this morning's Torah reading left off and is really not necessarily what any of us want to or need to hear on Yom Kippur afternoon. It's all about illicit sexual relationships. And so the progressive Jewish movements have given us an option for an alternate Torah reading that speaks a lot more to really kind of what are the ideas of tshuva and kind of what are the ideals and morals that we are aspiring to hold ourselves to that come from the Torah. And so what we'll be reading this morning, what we'll be reading this afternoon, I think as Sharon reads through it, you'll see a lot of messages about kind of the way in which we want to live our lives from this point, hopefully in the past, but also really in the new year from this point forward. So it comes from Leviticus chapter 19, and it can be found on page 365. Let's find the place.
Did I go too
Yeah,
far?
I think so.
I did.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back.
How does it start with?
וידבר אדוני עם משה לאמור, דבר בני ישראל ואמרת להם קדושים תהיו. Maybe I didn't go far enough.
Sorry, give us a second here.
Because this is still the other one. Say it. Help.
Sharon, do you mind moving the Moser so we can just spread it out?
Yeah. Let me, excuse me.
Yeah.
My bad. I need this.
That's here. This is like what my anxiety dreams consist of. Sorry, everyone. Kedoshim Tihyu. Yeah, we went too far.
We went too far.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
it,
there we
right?
are. Okay.
All right, that on the grand scale of things is a relatively short bout of that. So now we are set and ready
We're
to
here.
begin on page 365. Mike is here for the first aliyah, and we are going to get going. ותגלה ותראה מלכותו עלינו זמן קרוב, ויחון תחתנו ותחת עמו בית ישראל לכנו חסד רחמים ורצון ונאמר אמן. הכל הגדולנו נתוק עבוד לתורה, נא לעמוד לעלייה הראשונה, נא לעמוד משה בן חיים ולבו הלוי ומרים לעלייה הראשונה, ברוך שנתן תורה למשה בקדושתו. ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל כל עדת בני ישראל ואמרת להם, קדושים תהיו, כי קדוש אני אדוני אלוהיכם, איש אמו ואביו תיראו, ואת שבתותי תשמרו, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אל תפנו אל האלילים, ואלוהי מעשיך לא תעשו לכם. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam, notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher Koach Mike. Nalamod Laliyah Hashniya. Nalamod Yudel Yoel Ben Nachum Ve'elka Laliyah Hashniya.
Baruch Hu es Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Barak
Adonai Barak Le'olam V'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah b'achar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu es Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
V'chi tizbachu zevach shlamim Adonai lirtzonchem tizbachu b'yom zivrachem yeachel u'mimacharat v'hanotar ad yom hashlishi ba'esh yisaref v'im heachol yeachel b'yom hashlishi pigul hu lo yeratzeh Ba'ochlav avono yisa, ki et kodesh Adonai chilel, v'nichret ha'nefesh hahi me'ameha, uv'kutzrechem et ketzir artzechem, lo techalep ha'atzadecha, liktzor, v'leket ketzircha, lo telaket, v'charmecha, lo te'olel, uferet karmecha, lo telaket, Le'ani v'lager tazov otam, ani Adonai Elohechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nasan lanu Torah emes, v'chayei olam notah b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yashkoch Joel. Nalamod Laliyah Hashlishit. Nalamod. Sorry, Jim, I can't pull it up.
Shimon.
Nalamod Chiram Shimon ben Avram Avinu Vesari Meinu Aliyah Hashlishit. And we are on page 366 for the third Aliyah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam. Wow. Oh, down here. You pointed the last time.
I'm sorry.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Lo tignovu, v'lo tichachashu, v'lo tishakru, ish ba'amito, v'lo tishavu v'shmi, l'shaker, b'chilal et shem Elohecha, ani Adonai, lo ta'ashok et reacha, v'lo tigzol, lo talin, pu'lat zachiritcha, ad boker, lo tekalel cheresh, v'lifnei iver, lo titein michshol, v'yaretem Elohecha, ani Adonai, lo tasu avel b'mishpat, lo tisaf nedal, v'lo tedar p'nei gadol, b'tzedek tishpot amitecha, lo telech rachil ba'amecha, lo tamod al dam be'echa, ani Adonai, lo tisnat achicha b'yovavecha, הוכיח תוכיח את עמיתך, ולא תישא עליו חטא, לא תקום ולא תטור את בני עמך, ואהבת לרעך כמוך, אני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam, natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher Koach Jim, Yasher Koach Sharon. Thank you everyone who participated in that short little Torah service, and we will continue. I will invite you to rise for the lifting and dressing of the Torah. Okay, so you want to bend with your knees and push it down. I'll give you help. You want to hold it from the bottom. Bezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael ani Adonai b'yad Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Yashkov, Dennis. Okay, that's all. No. You may be seated. I'm also going to invite you, as you get seated, if at least for this part of the service, if you wanted to come closer, that would be wonderful. Although I know that everyone's inclination when in synagogue is to, get as far away from the bima as possible. But as we're going to be having a conversation for the next little bit, if you're willing to come join us up front or closer to the front, that would be great. And Anne, I'm going to burden you with this, which you're going to have to hold really close to your mouth. But it'll help everyone hear you, including the folks who are watching us online. So, and please have a seat. So good afternoon, everyone. Now that we finished the Torah reading, going back to the times of the Talmud, the Haftarah reading, the reading from the prophets for the afternoon of Yom Kippur has traditionally been the book of Jonah, which is a relatively short 4-chapter book. And one of the things that I have heard many, many times over the years is actually that people get people get kind of sick of hearing Jonah on Yom Kippur afternoon, because in Hebrew it is long, and in English they feel like they have heard all the ways which there are to do it, which I'm sure is not true. And I think if we keep doing it this way, maybe in a couple years we will return to the conventional Hebrew or English reading, and it will seem new and fresh. But as response to that feedback, a couple years ago, I started inviting clergy colleagues and friends from other communities to share their own kind of unique perspective on the book of Jonah and help give us some new perspective and light into the book of Jonah. And so for this year, I am really excited to welcome Reverend Ann Deneen to join us this afternoon. Is it okay if I just call you Ann? Do you want to go by? Okay, and I'm Alex. We can dispel with formalities, I hope. So Anne is the retired minister of St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Gloucester, where she served for 18 years until 2020. I'll let her give the rest of her bio, but I know Anne from my summer chaplaincy internship at Beverly Hospital, where she came to give a presentation on the concept of grace and how it could work its way into our hospital work and our ministry. And also on her work with the Grace Center, which is a day center for folks in Gloucester that was started as an interfaith collaboration between a group of different ministers in the Gloucester area. And I've stayed in touch with her throughout the years. Anne is also, do you consider yourself a member of Temple Av Atachim in Gloucester? So Anne is also a longtime member of CAA in Gloucester, so she does speak our language as well. And I'm really excited to have her here and share some of her perspectives on the book of Jonah. And Anne, if there's anything you want to round out from your bio to get us started.
I just want to say I don't actually speak Hebrew, but I feel at home in the liturgy. So thank you.
Great.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it's really, really wonderful to have you. And so we're just going to start with a quick overview of the book of Jonah, which I will do, and Anne will fill in anything I miss. So Jonah gets called on by God to deliver a message of destruction to the city of Nineveh, which was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. Jonah gets that call from God and basically runs as fast and far away as he can in the other direction. He hops on a boat, hoping to put oceans between him and Nineveh. And God, seeing this, causes storms on the sea. The boat is in danger of sinking. All of the sailors on the boat turn to their own gods to say, why is this happening to us? How can we be saved? And they eventually find Jonah sleeping in the hold, and they say, wait, why aren't you praying to your God? Who's your God? And he says, my God is Adonai. And they say, well, this is obviously clearly the work of that God. And they try everything they can to save him, at which point he tells them, it's okay, you can throw me overboard and save yourselves, which they do, and Jonah is, and the sea is calm, and that boat is saved, and Jonah is famously swallowed by a big fish. From the belly of the fish, he prays to God. The fish spits him out onto dry land. God gives him the charge to go to Nineveh again and deliver the message that they need to repent, or else their city will be destroyed. And they listen. Jonah gives them a 40-day warning. They listen immediately, change their ways. The city is saved. And Jonah finds himself miffed about this. Jonah enters into conversation with God and is basically sullen and kind of pouting. And either because, it's not entirely clear why, either because it now looks like he is a false prophet because he predicted doom and doom did not come, or because he knows that the people of Nineveh who he helped save will ultimately play a part in the destruction of the Israelite kingdom. And God basically says, God puts a shade tree over him, which Jonah finds some comfort in, and then God withers the tree, at which point Jonah is even more upset, and God says, how could you be upset about this tree, whereas you are basically asking me to destroy a whole populous city of people? And if you're so sad about this tree, imagine how much it pains me to have to bring justice upon the city of Nineveh. So that's the quick overview. Anne, was there anything I skipped over that you were hoping I'd mention or emphasize more?
Just the one part where they pray to God to forgive them for throwing Jonah into the sea and that God would have mercy on them for that.
Yeah, the sailors on the ship. Yeah, there is a lot of mercy and prayer, not necessarily by the characters we expect, right? The person who is designated in this story as the prophet of God is the one who is, I think we find to be the one who wants the most distance from God.
Mercy.
Yeah. So to get us started, Anne, I'm just wondering if you want to tell us a little bit about either your personal relationship with the book of Jonah or how it comes up as a spiritual resource for you, or was used in your work as a congregational minister?
So that's 3 pieces. So I'll just start with the first one. This is a traditional reading in the, it comes up for Lutherans on the night before Easter morning. It comes up in the Easter Vigil as one of the readings that you go through. We go through all of the readings from Genesis all the way through, picking various ones, and Jonah always comes up. So he's read pretty deeply at that time. My own relationship with Jonah is I'm really fond of him. I really understand him. Just that part. And I have a lot of empathy for him as a reluctant prophet. And I don't know if it's come up, in conversations with other people, particularly except for the part where he's in the belly of the whale. And lots of times people in crisis might talk about it like that, that they're in our hospital work. It would have come up in a crisis. You just feel cut off and in this place of yearning and longing and wanting to connect with God, which he does in that moment. Yeah.
Thanks, Ann. And so the way, not the way, but one of the concepts I would really love your help in kind of bringing out a little bit is, in general, the concept of grace, and specifically how we see the concept of grace in the book of Jonah. I find within Jewish practice and tradition that grace, at least as an English word, is not one that resonates. I think it's one that we have kind of given over to Christian use and kind of makes us, I'll speak personally, it can often make me cringe because it feels like a word that just doesn't belong in, it just doesn't fit with Jewish practice and Jewish conceptions. And it's a beautiful Hebrew word, chen, that a lot of people can't pronounce, and so we also stay away from it in Hebrew. And also I know that whenever I hear anyone talk about grace, or whenever I hear the song Amazing Grace, like I know that it does speak to me. So I'd love if you could help kind of give me, and I assume some other people in this room, a fuller understanding of what you think grace is, or yeah, let's start with that. And if I'm going to try to give you only one question at a time from now on.
Well, can I go to the book of Jonah
Sure.
for that? So we talked about this, Alex and I, a few times, and one of the things we looked at was maybe the way grace as a gift happens in the book of Jonah, and whether it was present just between God and the various characters in Jonah, or if it was present in the human relationships between them. So as I understand grace, I don't know enough about the Hebrew term chen to speak to it, but I always pair it with chesed and rachamim. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so with mercy and with loving kindness. So that's where grace falls for me, is where I see the mercy of happening, whether it's between persons or between God and persons. In the book of Jonah, I saw a lot of grace in the relationship between the sailors and Jonah, and that their desire to not see him come to harm and their willingness to try everything before resorting to having to throw him overboard. That was kind of a graciousness on their part. And as I experience grace in the book of Jonah, it's the Adonai's continual reaching toward everyone, whether it's the Ninevites or Jonah or even the sailors on the boat. I don't know about the relationship with the fish, but I don't know if Jonah was good to eat or not. But, there's this kind of continual openness on Adonai's part toward everyone in there, and a kind of willingness to be in relation, and that seems full of grace to me. As Alex and I talked when we first knew each other, the the organization, the Grace Center, came about because of this recognition that everything we have is gift, all of creation is gift, all we experience, we didn't make, it comes to us as gift. And when we started the Grace Center, we didn't have anything, we had no money, we just had relationships of friendship, which was a grace. And out of that came this really beautiful organization to meet the needs of people who were unsheltered and hungry in Gloucester during the day. It's a day center. So that is kind of a concrete example of grace that came out of the grace of kindness and friendship. So it seems to me that there's ways of thinking it as a whole of creation is infused with that kind of gift. And I certainly find that in the Hebrew scriptures. So that I would say.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you. And I guess I'm wondering, hearing what you just said, if you could talk a little bit about kind of, and I'll try my best to articulate this, but if you could talk a little bit about kind of the give and take of it. Like, it sounds to me like Jonah is offered a lot of grace, but doesn't accept it. And I wonder just if you see grace as something that is always there, or needs to be consciously offered, or needs to be accepted to be realized?
That's a really good question. And, these holidays are all about God's sovereignty, so it's hard to say we can resist that, even if we think we're resisting it, That's like one of my questions. Like, how can you actually resist? But he does in the story. He resists the call. He's not the only prophet to be uncomfortable with being called to do something uncomfortable. And I'm sure we've all had that in our lives, being called to something that we perhaps didn't want to do, but felt that it was a divine call. In any case, he does resist that. So there's that movement of freedom in grace, that the grace is offered and we have some freedom there to receive or not receive. And I always think of for me, if someone says, I love you, and I can't receive those words, I don't receive the benefits of that love. I block it. It's a really simple thing. We just shut down, and perhaps he did for whatever reason. And that blocks the grace that's coming toward him.
Do you think there's still value for the person who says, I love you, even if it's not received on the other end?
I do, actually. Yeah, certainly on God's part.
Yeah, and I wonder if that plays in a little bit too. One of the things we spoke about in preparation was you made a comparison to a parent-child relationship.
Right.
Right? You want to
Sure.
elucidate that a little bit?
Yeah, one of my favorite writers on child raising talks about the capacity of a child to become very angry with the parent. And sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had a 4-year-old say to you, I hate you, but it's really hard on them. It's not as hard on us as parents. And once they say that, they feel really cut off, according to this writer. And it's up to the parent to go toward the child. It's because to be so angry at your parent that you shout out as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, I hate you. It's very terrifying to feel that angry. And the parent then has to, what this writer calls, restore the interpersonal bridge between the parent and the child. And so you go toward the child who can't come toward you. And I always think about that in relation to this story, that in this story, Jonah flees, won't come toward God, but God goes toward Jonah, regardless. Even when Jonah's complaining about that broom tree afterwards, come on. So there's this really beautiful example of always working with the person, and I think that's a part of grace as well.
Yeah, and Jonah does, I mean, from the belly of the
From the-
fish,
right.
Jonah does come back to
He
God
comes- he reaches
on
out.
his own,
He
right?
does.
It's not, because while you were talking, I was like, wait, isn't Jonah
He
kind of
does.
coerced all
He
along
does.
the
I
way?
know.
He does.
That's a good
If
question.
you consider being in the belly of the fish kind of being, in a spot of
Yeah.
freedom and not duress, but he
Right.
does come back on his
Yeah.
own eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also another thing that I think builds off this a little bit that we discussed some is how you see curiosity playing a role in this story, and the curiosity or lack thereof from different characters, including Jonah and God.
So when we were talking about grace, we talked about the capacity to be open, and it seems like Jonah shuts down and isn't open. So there's a kind of lack of curiosity there because he doesn't want to see what he thinks is going to happen, and of course it does happen. So he kind of shuts off the curiosity of his own capacity to be open. And I was struck when I read Jonah through this year about God's openness and maybe God's curiosity towards what was happening with Jonah. And I think the sailors were, as we talked about it, because they prayed to their gods and they said, well, who's your God and who are you praying? There's a kind of openness and curiosity about how this is going to happen, what's going to happen. There's places where Jonah is shut down and God is open. And that seems to be a part of grace too, that willingness to go toward and be curious.
I wonder if you can offer any strategies or any ways for us to think about, maybe inspired by your work at the Grace Center, about what we can do if it feels like we're putting something out there, we're putting out love or acceptance or grace, and the person on the other end is completely closed to it.
That's a really good question, Alex.
I'm putting you on the spot
You
a little
really
bit.
are.
If you want to come back to it, we can. If you want to punt,
No,
we can.
I'll give you an example. So at the Grace Center, one of the principles that we would work with, and Alex and I talked a lot about this when he was an intern there, is people come and you don't know how they are or how they're feeling at all. They can be in any state of awareness. They can sometimes be, just completely inaccessible. So one of the principles of the place is just to be present to people, not necessarily, and this is interesting because the curiosity question is there. You might be curious about what's going on with the person, but you don't ask. You let them be, and you're just present. And that might be a response. That was one of the ways you welcome, you offer hospitality, you offer presence, and only by then their invitation might you sit down and have a conversation. That's by invitation. So that's a kind of willingness to wait. And sometimes you have to wade in, but often it's just by being present. That's the main thing I think we learned in chaplaincy as well, is coming into a hospital room where a crisis is happening, what it is to be present and awake to what might be going on there, right?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good.
What
it's
do
a
you
good start.
think?
No, that's something we actually I spoke about a little bit on Rosh Hashanah. Is the need to kind of be patient and responsive, but not always driving the interaction, no matter how much you might want to or how much you might feel uncomfortable in that waiting, right? But that if you want to be of service to someone else, it's often the case where you need to let them steer the ship, to play on
Right.
the Jonah nautical metaphor.
Right.
Yeah. I had an instance a couple of weeks ago when I was at Beverly Hospital, and I walked into someone's room, and they basically said, "So talk to me." And I was like completely taken aback, because that's not, it's not, I'm used to kind of the waiting and the responding. So it was really kind of an interesting flip the script to be told to just give them a spiel. Like, I wasn't ready for it at all. And I did not. I was caught very off guard. Yeah. And I wonder if kind of to flip the last question I asked you, so it'll be another bit of a tricky one, and I apologize, but if you have any advice or any strategies to guide us and think about receiving grace, either from other people or ways to be open to seeing God's grace around us.
This is really hard.
I told you it was going to be an evolving conversation. You got my mind going. Sorry, Ann.
No, that's great.
And I'm just prepping you for when we let them ask questions, because then it'll
Yeah,
get harder.
No, I'd love to ask everybody else that question, but that's a really good example of, one of the things I think the patient presence works for that as well, for both, is being able to, one, recognize when something like that's coming toward you. Sometimes we don't recognize when grace is coming toward us, when a gift of friendship or an offering is coming toward us. Sometimes we don't recognize it. And having the capacity to be present in one case also is the capacity to be present to oneself and to what's happening, and to try and stay open to receive. So curiosity works both ways, both from the curious person and the one, or the person coming toward, but also to have that same stance towards what's coming toward you. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. One of my great quote from a therapist long ago who works a lot with families and couples, she said, "We're always negotiating the terms of our intimacy." And that's kind of what you're talking about, our capacity to receive what the offering is, what the gift is, and to be close to it and not closed off to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's always evolving, right?
It's always
I mean, you might get to
evolving.
the end of one interaction and feel like
Right.
you got somewhere, and then,
Right.
talking to the next person or even talking to the same person in your life again the
Right.
next day or 2 hours later, and you're actually kind of back to square one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a practice, actually. It's both a gift and a practice, I think.
And so I want to turn back to the book of Jonah a little bit, and you referenced this a little, but I would love to hear you expand on it a little bit more, is what exactly you make of the last chapter of the book of Jonah. It ends on, you could call it a mixed note, but it really ends on kind of at least if we're fans of Jonah, it ends on a dark note, right? He is sitting there upset and alone underneath a withered tree. And I wonder what you make of the ending of Jonah and how you feel walking away from the book of Jonah.
Well, I think the ending is an invitation to not have quite such a narrow view, to expand our view from God, to expand our view from our own situation to the wider context of what's going on. So again, it's toward expansion and not narrowness. It's uncomfortable to step out of your perspective into something wider, and it seems like the invitation there from the divine is to understand the connection to everything, or to the people of Nineveh is as important to the Creator as Jonah is, or even as the broom tree or the bush. And that's a very hard thing for us. And you sit with maybe some of the grace in that is to be able to sit with the difficulty of it. I think there's a reading, at least in the, there's a reading that comes right afterwards.
Yes,
right?
we do
But
quote
we go
other
right
prophets afterwards because to kind of bring ourselves some
Right.
extra comfort and reconciliation so we're not left totally
Right.
scratching our heads.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about it, we went back to the 13 attributes, and that if you remember who is saying what is being said, that it is the God of mercy and grace and loving kindness and patience and forgiveness, who's saying those things. Who is speaking is the voice of that kind of chesed, that love is speaking. And so you hear it differently. if you're hearing God as judge there, you hear it different. But if you're hearing it from the voice of love, it's not as harsh. It's who is speaking, is the God of mercy.
Yeah, yeah, and so we actually, I think, we have the luxury of not needing to necessarily totally put ourselves in Jonah's shoes, right? Like we
Right.
can zoom out and take
Right.
in the bigger picture in a way that it seems like he is not able to at the end of
No.
the story.
And I'm sure we've all had that, where we can't take in the wider perspective. And our own suffering can sometimes narrow the view.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Anne.
You're welcome.
So I do want to open it up for, we have at least 15 minutes or so if folks have follow-up questions or things they want to contribute to the discussion. I see a couple hands go up, and I will do my best to repeat questions so that folks on Zoom can hear them as well. Yeah, Jerry.
Everybody, well, you know, what you're discussing, I've been there and done some of that. But my personal thing is Jonah is a grumpy cat. He doesn't want to be bothered, and he doesn't want to take on more than he can chew. And he felt that it's something that is more than he can chew. And he was scared. That's the first time probably in his life that he was actually afraid. But anyway, we all know in this room how responsibility is taken by any individual. We had the evolution of Alex to his present ordination. And the whole story, the whole aura, the ambiance of the synagogue has changed so much for the better. Because I was here like 20 years ago. But looking into your career, you've taken a certain responsibility for an action, and you took that action. Where did you get that action, and how did it evolve? That was my question.
In my career?
I think just a little bit about kind of how you got into the ministerial work
into
that
the
you took
ministerial
on,
work.
and
I think it came out of a long curiosity, and it was kind of one step after another. I don't know. I don't ever get a big picture from Hashem. Never a big picture. So I think it was invitation, and at each invitation, you can say, "Here I am," or not. And most of the time I would say, "Here I am," and sometimes that opened further, and sometimes something shut down. So it was really a feeling my way forward. I didn't become ordained until I was 47, so I was on the journey a long time. Yeah, it took a long time. You mean inside?
There are some people that are mechanically inclined. I have a grandson who has ADHD, and academically it's a 0. But all of a sudden, he's an apprentice electrician, and he loves it. So he found his niche.
He found his niche, yeah.
Everybody finds their niche.
They do, yeah.
You know, I kid around with everybody. I'm a Hebrew school dropout. It's the truth. And things evolved to where I am sitting here today talking to you, knowing much more than I did when I was 8, 9, and 10 years old. So anyway, I don't know if age comes with some wisdom or it just evolves into taking a certain responsibility for an idea. And you certainly had an idea.
I did. I did.
I wonder if that idea of finding a niche too is something, we get dropped in to Jonah getting called by God. Like, we don't know what Jonah's profession was, family life was. I think we often judge him for wanting to run away, but I don't know how many of us are able or excited or willing to drop whatever we're doing to go take a hard right turn and go chase something completely different, right? Yeah, we don't know anything about him before or
No,
afterwards.
we
and
don't.
Yeah,
We don't.
yeah. And I also wonder, if that's something you might run into a little bit at the Grace Center, right? And finding the value in every human being, a lot of whom are kind of very easily cast off by society that chooses to look over and past them
Yeah,
often.
yeah. No, that's true. It's true.
Yeah.
They all have stories, and as you were saying, you're not always sure how people get there, and some of them never found their niche, and some of them found their niche and lost it. So it seems like it's ongoing, that journey of discovery. Yeah.
Thanks, Ann. Let's go to Jim and then Wayne.
It occurs to me that I could give them my mic.
If they want to come to the front.
Oh, you don't want me to run around?
No.
Okay.
Jim, go for it. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, and so responsibility being at the core of both Jonah kind of trying to avoid responsibility and the sailors trying to take full responsibility and accountability. Yeah. Wayne, did you have something you wanted to speak up a little bit?
This is a very, very brief question. In your definition of grace, you mentioned leniency and kindness and stuff like that. But doesn't it also include a sense of almost ethereal inner peace?
It's a good question. I think it depends on how you're talking about grace. I think there's many different ways of experiencing it or naming it. For me, the peace part would come from that capacity to receive a gift, receive something that I didn't do or work or earn or in any way deserve. There's a peace that comes from that, of acceptance. I don't know if that's helpful, but I think that's at a personal experience level. I don't know. I think it's a really good question. How is grace experienced? Is it felt? Is it thought? Is it lived? You could really think about that. Work with that. Right, it's a gift. Yeah. Yeah. Always gift. That's what it means, gift.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Noah, please.
Well, I always liked Jonah because I always thought he was naughty, so I related to him. Just for somebody so hospitable, just saying no. I just love that. But this year, when I was reading it, I guess I'm a little bit more annoyed at Hashem because I feel like, sort of what Jerry was saying, is that, and not knowing Jonah's background, he was scared. This is a very real threat. If he goes, this is not go and buy pineapples. This is a very scary thing he's being told to do. And I just think Hashem could have handled it differently and said, I'm with you. You're safe. You're okay. And if Jonah had said, this terrifies me, Hashem could have said, okay, let's just take it back a step and let's just go through this. Because you'd be a crazy person to be told that you're going to go and do something and risk your life, and you should just be like, A-okay. That would be a really odd thing. And I think when I think of, Abraham with Yitzhak and go up and all this, that's great, but I don't know how many of us would just do that. And I know as a small person, if someone told me to go walk through a scary part of town, I'm going to think twice. Now I realize that Hashem is not some person asking me to do that, but it depends on what my relationship is. I mean, you might have been thinking, I don't have the skills now. I don't have the whole message. Maybe not now. There's just a lot of questions there. And so I have a little more mercy in my own, or grace for him, that I still like him being naughty, but I think that Hashem could have handled it differently, but also, and I blame the message. It was not as, and if you go to the parent-child, the parent does need to be able to see that look of fear on the child's face and say, okay, you tell a child like, well, someday you'll have a job and you'll drive a car, all this, and the kid looks at you in terror, and you say, oh, not now, because you're only 5, and you're like, "Ooh." So there's a time when you say that, and the child says, yeah, I'm up for that. And there's a time when the child says, that terrifies me. And I just don't think that part happened.
Thank you for that. I love that.
Thanks, Noah. Anything you want to respond to in there?
No, I
let it
just
sit. It
really
was-
love that. I love that.
Yashikoa.
Well, just also, pushing back.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from the Jewish perspective, right, or at least from the perspective that this congregation often likes to inhabit, is pushing back a little bit, right? And so what happens when we don't find quite enough of God's grace in our life? That's also something we have to deal with. I want to hear from some people who haven't spoken yet, Jim, sorry, because a bunch of... Sorry? Yes. We have time for probably 2 or 3 more, depending on how long they take. I saw Fran's hand up first. Fran, if you want to speak loud, please.
I'm just playing with the idea of grace and responsibility, and the idea, of course, based on the Jonah story, but generalizing it, so that if, let's say, a person is asked to do something, could be a child is asked to do something, and they feel like, I can't do it, how would I be able to do it? And if it's thought of as, it's you have responsibility. You have the ability to respond because you've been given a gift, because you think of it as like the qualities that you've got maybe from Hashem. So I'm just thinking that playing with that concept, it's like, oh, I've been given these things, and so therefore maybe I'm just thinking about that whole grace and how the implications of the word responsibility.
Thank you.
So just to repeat the core point so everyone can hear it, Fran did a little bit of a midrash on the word responsibility and broke it into 2, right? So responsibility, and it wasn't, maybe what I heard a little bit is, it wasn't so much Jonah's decision to say no as much as it was his decision to run away without even saying no, right? That sometimes grace is the ability to respond how we want to. Yeah. Yeah, because of what your own capability and capacity is. Yeah, thanks, Fran.
Thanks.
Let's try to get through these three real quick, hopefully, and then we'll give Anne a final word, and then we'll move on to Minchah.
When you're sitting 100 yards from me, I can't hear a thing you say. Couldn't we get closer to each other?
Sorry, Betsy, that's also on me for not managing the microphones a little bit better in a big room, so I apologize. Anna and then Joel, and speak loudly.
I will speak loudly, all right? Good. I don't know, we don't know also who Jonah was before this. And what if he was like waiting every day for the call? What if he was that Jonah? And there was some kind of sign. He saw a sign, he heard a sign that one day he will be called. That's what you're saying, Fran. And that in some place he had the willingness to go where he's called. Maybe he's Isaiah in disguise. And here I am, Lord. Okay, I'll jump into the fish's mouth. I hope you know what you're doing. And lead me, and I will follow. I'm not saying that's what he was thinking, but what if he was thinking that? And people do that. They get called to the most insane things to do. They don't know why they're being called to jump into the giant fish's mouth. They do it anyways. And they live. And they not only live, but they live with such meaning and purpose, and they have seen the other side. They went through the hell and the fire, they survived, and now what do they do with their life? Maybe something meaningful. Maybe that's the Jonah became. Maybe.
Maybe.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Let's go to Joel, and then we'll give Anne a final word, and then we'll move on with the conclusion of Minchah.
I have two things I'd like to share. One is in the relation to the conversation about intimacy, brought to mind for me an expression, the dance of intimacy. And there's stepping back from your partner and going towards your partner. So that's a way I like to think about that progression that we all deal with. It's a dance.
Nice.
The other thing about grace, I think it's something we need to practice. And if we're waiting for the big wow, we might wait a long time. But if every day we could reflect on gifts that were given, then we're more open to the grace that's in our lives always.
Thanks, Joel. And that's an interesting play off of what Anna said, right? That because you're bringing up that grace can be a practice, that rather than waiting for the big wow, that finding moments of it, like so much else about living a meaningful spiritual life, right? Whether it's gratitude, whether it's grace, but finding small moments as opposed to waiting for that. You know, Anna, you suggested that maybe Jonah was sitting there waiting every day for a call, and you know, maybe the after story of this is that his life, I mean, I'm sure his life was changed one way or the other, but was changed for the better. But you know, I also wonder if there were other ways in which he might have been better prepared to receive this call, so that it wouldn't have come as this all system shock that kind of turned his world upside down. And I do think, you know, I think one of the main messages of Yom Kippur that we hopefully take with us is not to wait for Yom Kippur to do all the things that we do on Yom Kippur, right? To find moments of grace, of prayer, of gratitude, of repentance, of apology, of giving forgiveness, receiving forgiveness, return, that all of these things hopefully make their way into our lives 365 days a year. And yes, you know, on Yom Kippur, I think we do need and embrace that kick in the backside that we get, but I do think the ideal of it is to broaden it out so that we are practicing a lot more of this on a day-to-day basis. So thanks for bringing that in. Anne, anything you want to leave us with this afternoon?
Well, I would say that your invitation to come here today was a very great grace for me, and I wanted to thank you. And in that was, because I could have said no, and then I wouldn't have got to be here with all of you on this incredible day. And so that's just grace right there of being invited, and thankfully I had the capacity to say yes. So thank you. And thank you all. It was wonderful to be with you this afternoon. Truly wonderful.
Thank you, Anne. We don't usually applaud in shul, but I think we can. Yeah, I just do really want to thank you, Anne, for gracefully accepting the invitation and for being willing to jump in. It was a little bit of a cold call, and and it was a great excuse to kind of reconnect and restart relationship. And yeah, just thank you so much for coming. I guess we're up from coming sideways to Newbury Fort, and thank you for giving us some really rich ideas to keep on chewing on as we head into the year about how we can find grace in our lives, bestow grace to others, and hopefully make it something that we really are kind of working on as a regular practice and not just waiting till we're in the belly of a whale to have to figure it out. Thank you, Anne. Great to see you. And thank you, everyone, for your comments and thoughts and questions and participation in the conversation. We will come back together in our machzors. I will call Alex back up to the bima as we pick back up on page 372, and we rise as the ark is opened once again for the returning of the Torah to the ark. Page 372. Me?
Hallelujah. Et Shem Adonai, ki niskav
Oh,
shemo
okay, yeah.
levado.
Oh, well, you'll be here to close it. Sorry, I didn't mean to take it from you. Chazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Amen. We'll continue with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 373.
Yitkadal ve'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah
Amen.
Yahol diverach kirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechonu v'yomechon U'v'chayei techol Beit Yisrael B'hagala u'bizman kariv ve'imru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba mevorach Le'olam u'ol me'ol maya Yitbarach ve'yishtabach V'yitpar v'yitdarvam v'yitnaseh Ve'yitadar ve'yitalal Shmei Kudsha Berichu Li'ela Mikol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran Be'alma Ve'imru Amen.
So for the Amidah for Minchah, usually when we do a partial repetition, we say the first part out loud and the second part quiet. This afternoon we are going to flip that script. So we are going to say the first part quiet and come back together at the end of the Amidah for the second part out loud, which has the vidui, the confession in it. So we are going to start on page 374 and take a couple minutes for silent prayer and reflection through page 380. And in a couple minutes, we'll come together on 380 for Shema Kolenu. So take a couple minutes for silent prayer. If you want to follow along the text, you can do so from page 374 to page 380, and we'll come back together for Shema Kolenu in a couple minutes.
And we'll continue as the ark is opened on page 380 with Shema Kolenu. 380. And the Minchah Shema Kolenu is the last one of the day, so put everything you can into responding to Jerry here.
Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chusrachem Aleinu, V'kabel Rachamim Ratzon, Es Tefilosenu.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel brachamim v'ratzon et tfilateinu.
Ashivenu, Adonai Elecha b'noshuva, Chadesh Yomeinu, Kekedem.
Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh yameinu kekedem.
Al tarachti mechenu milfonecho v'ruach kodshecho al tikach mimenu.
Al tashlichenu milfanecha v'ruach kadshecha al tikach mimenu.
Al tashlichenu liyesikno kichlos kolchenu al tasvenu.
Al tashlichenu le'etzikna, kichlot kochenu, al tazveinu.
Eloheinu, v'Elohei Avoseinu, v'Imoseinu, al tasvenu v'al tishenu, v'al tachlimenu, v'al tapad b'rischa itanu, korbeinu l'soresecho, lamdenu mitzvosecho, horeinu l'rachecho, eglibenu v'ira eshemecho, umol estivavenu v'havosecho, v'noshu elecha be'emes u'b'lev sholem. U'ma'an shimecha hagadol, timecha v'sislach lavoneinu, kakosu b'divrei kodshecho, v'ma'an shimcha Adonai, v'solachti lavoni kirafu.
Top of 381.
Eloheinu, Elohei Avoseinu, v'Imoseinu, Slach Lanu, V'chalanu, Kaper Lanu.
Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha ve'ata avinu, anu
ve'ata Adonenu, anu kehalecha, ve'ata chelkeinu, anu nachatecha, ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzonecha, ve'ata roeinu, anu charmecha, ve'ata notreinu, anu feulatecha, ve'ata yotreinu, anu rayatecha, ve'ata dodeinu, anu segulatecha, ve'ata keroveinu, anu amecha, ve'ata malkeinu, anu mamirecha, ve'ata mamireinu. Anu azefanim ve'ata rachum bechanun, anu kishay oref ve'ata erecha payim, anu mle'avon ve'ata malei rachamim, anu yameinu ketzel over ve'ata ushnotecha lo yitamu. Eloheinu v'lo avotenu v'imotenu tavo lefanecha tfilatenu v'al tita mitchinatenu she'ina nachnu azefanim u'ksher efloman lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lo avotenu v'imotenu tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu aval anachnu v'avotenu v'imotenu chatanu.
Top of page 382, the Ashamnu.
Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevinu, Vehirshadnu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, Yatsnura, Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Oref, Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu.
And on the back inside cover of your Machzorim, the Ahavnu, the positive confession.
Ahavnu, Beirachnu, Gadalnu, Dibarnu Yofi, Helinu, Vechasnu, Zeiraznu, Chamalnu, Tipachnu Emet, Yatsnu Tov, Kibadnu, Lamadnu, Machalnu, Nichamnu, Salnu, Orarnu, Paalnu, Sadaknu, Kivinu Laaretz, Richamnu, Shakadnu, Tamachnu, Taramnu, Tikanu.
We'll continue on page 385. This is the third and final set of the Alchet. So Alex and I will be reading them responsively with you in English. We'll start with the first one, and you can respond with the italics. We have sinned against you by throwing off all restraint. We have sinned
against you by plotting against others. We have sinned against you through superficiality. We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil. We have sinned against you through empty promises. We have sinned against you by betraying a trust. V'al kulam Elohai selichot selach lanu mechal lanu kapher lanu.
Page 386, you may be seated.
Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imotenu mechal la'avonotenu b'yom ha'kippurim hazeh mecheva v'er p'sheinu v'chatotenu minagenecha ka'amur anochi u'moche b'shecha l'mani v'chatotecha lo ezker v'ne'emar machitika b'shecha v'chenan chatotecha shuva elai ki ga'alticha v'ne'emar ki v'yom hazeh yechaper alechem l'tarechem mikol chatotechem lifnei Adonai titaru Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imotenu kodshenu b'mitzvotecha v'teinu cholkeinu b'toratecha sabeinu mituvecha v'tzacheinu b'shuatecha v'taher libeinu le'avdecha b'emet ki ata solchan Yisrael m'cholan nishivtei shirun b'chol dor v'adoim b'adecha in lanu mocha v'salech ela ata baharuch ata Adonai Melech mocha v'soleach, lavonotenu v'lavonot amo be'Yisrael, u'ma'avir ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana, melech al kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael, ve'yom ha'kippurim.
Amen.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu,
387.
Yisrael, u'b'tfilatam b'shevet avodah, li'beritecha, u'tfilatam b'avat k'berotzon, Utehil ratzon temid avodah Yisrael amecha v'techezena einenum shivchatayom brachamim baharuch ata Adonai amachazir shchinato letzion.
Amen. Modim anachnu lach. Middle of 387.
Hatov kilu chal rachamecha v'ramachem kilu tamacha sadecha me'olam kivihinu lach v'yal kulam itbarach v'yimram shimcha malkeinu tamid le'olam voed avinu malkeinu zechor rachamecha kvosh kascha v'chalei dever v'cherev v'ra u'shvi u'mashchit v'avon u'shma megafa v'gavra v'chol machala v'chol tikala v'chol kitata v'chol minei paraniyo v'chol gezerah ra'ah v'sinat chinam Me'aleinu me'al kol b'nei v'ritzecha U'chatov l'chayim tovim Kol b'nei v'ritzecha B'chol ha'chayim yoducha sela v'yolu ha'shimcha be'emet Ha'el yishuateinu v'ritzotenu sela baharuch ata Adonai Hatov shimcha lachane leodot
Amen.
Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imotenu barcheinu ba'avracham shuleshet b'aktorach t'vardi Moshe abdecha hamurami pieron avanav kohanim hamkdoshecha ka'amur yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha
Kein yiratzon.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha
Kein yiratzon.
Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom
Kein yiratzon.
Sim shalom ba'olam tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu malko Yisrael amecha barcheinu avinu kulanu kechad be'or panecha ki be'or panecha tatalanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat chayim ve'avat chesed u'tzedakah uvracha v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom v'tov v'erecha l'recha t'mcha Yisrael b'chol eitu v'chol sha'a b'shlomecha בספר חיים, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, ניזכר וניכתב לפניך, אנחנו בכל עמך בישראל, לחיים טובים ולשלום ברוך אתה אדוני, עושה השלום.
Amen. And on page 389, we rise for Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu,
We begin silently, and we will, in the middle of the page, repeat responsively with Alex.
Avinu Malkeinu, hachazirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, hachzirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, zochrenu b'zikaron tov lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, zochrenu b'zikaron tov lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer zechuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer zechuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer slicha umchila.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila. We continue silently through the top of the next page.
Avinu Malkeinu tzachai.
Top of 390.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed v'hoshienu. The ark is closed, and we remain standing for the full Kaddish on page 390.
Yitgadal ve'yikahada shemehei rabba.
Amen.
Be'olma diverakerute ve'yamlich malchute
V'chayechonu
v'chayechonu
v'yomechon
v'yomechon
u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman karivim meru. Amen. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam le'olmei olmaya.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילא לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו
Amen.
תתקבל תלותון ובאותון דכל ישראל אדם אבוהון בישמעיה ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
והי שלום רבה משמעיה והחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
You may be seated.
In just a moment, we'll continue with Ne'ilah. And I will tell you before we start Ne'ilah, we are exactly where we want to be. I say that in that there is an hour left, and that is kind of the minimum that Alex and I want to be able to lead us through Ne'ilah. But I'll also say that in terms of if you're here in the sanctuary, if you're watching at home, this is where we want to be. Ne'ilah channels a spirit that is not accessible, at least to me, in any other part of the High Holiday Liturgy. I came across a short piyut that is not printed in our machzor, but I stumbled upon it in a different machzor, and the chorus that it comes back to, and I'm going to do my best to channel it, is Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. And that's a piyut from Slichot that is used throughout the year, and in some congregations, especially Sephardic or Mizrahi ones from Middle Eastern Jewish communities, would be used at Slichot. It's a very simple line that I just sang to you. It means, we sinned before you, have mercy on us. But in case you can tell, and I am not the most musical person in the room, that was not a minor key, right? That was a major key. That was a festive singing. And if you look up videos of that piyut online, and I can share this with you after Yontif. There are videos of thousands of people singing that at the Kotel in joyous unison as they head into Slichot at the beginning of the month of Elul, and there are rock concert renditions of it, because this is in contrast to the way we started last night with a beautiful Kol Nidre that was somber and kind of slowing us down, and I think bringing us to a place emotionally where we're making ourselves vulnerable and beating ourselves up a little bit. Ne'ilah is not about that. Ne'ilah is about embracing our last opportunity to kind of get in God's good graces, but also recognizing that this is an uplifting moment, that hopefully the work we have committed ourselves to over the last 24 hours has really buoyed us up on top of the water for the 25th hour. And I'm hoping that altogether we can access a place of, yes, there's still a lot of awe and there's still a lot of solemnity, but I'm also hoping that there is a lot of joy, a lot of wonderful energy in the community. I just saw Sharon mouth the word hope, I'm pretty sure, and certainly accessing a place of hope. And I'm hoping that in this last hour together, we really can kind of manifest all of the positive aspirations we have for the year ahead and live it to its fullest as a community. So in just a moment, I'll invite Ides to kick us off with Ashrei. He'll do just the first and the last line to a tune that we've worked on together, and then we will move into the rest of Ne'ilah. But to get us started, I want to share a poem by David White. This is called The Opening of Eyes. That day, I saw beneath dark clouds the passing light over the water, and I heard the voice of the world speak out. I knew then, as I had before, life is no passing memory of what has been, nor the remaining pages in a great book waiting to be read. It is the opening of eyes long closed. It is the vision of far-off things seen for the silence they hold. It is the heart, after years of secret conversing, speaking out loud in the clear air. It is Moses in the desert fallen to his knees before the lit bush. It is the man throwing away his shoes as if to enter heaven, and finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground. Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Page 394.
Ashrei.
Hashrei
Yehoshvei
Yehoshvei Veitecha Od Hallelujah Od Hallelujah Sehela.
Silently on 394 and 395.
V'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
And on page 392, we'll have an English reader for When Nights Grow White. Page 392, the bottom left-hand side of the page.
When nights grow white. In those dreams of white nights that a tired world will dream silently, time will listen for its own pulse as well springs sing the song of their selves. Past and future will be fulfilled in an eternally present peace, and in the silence of your life, stars will be quiet. A wind of eternity will blow, and your eyes will grow wide.
Thank you, Christine. And I'll invite you to rise on page 397 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
I'll just say very quickly that beginning the Chatzi Kaddish here through the beginning of the Amidah, I will be doing a special tune for Ne'ilah that I learned from Joey Weisenberg, who learned it from his cantor Noach Shaw. If you pick it up, feel free to sing along. It's similar to the nigun we've been doing, but with a little extra. Yitgadal ve'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Ve'alemah Tiverach Kirhutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon U'beyomechon U'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Ay, ay, ve'imeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach li'olam lo me'ol maya yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpar ve'yitramam ve'yitnasei ve'yithadar ve'yitale ve'yitalal shemei dekucha ve'yichu Li'elaha, li'elaha, mikol birchata veshirata. Ahai, ay, ay, ahai, ay, 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 ay. Tushbechata, venechemata, tamiran bialma, veimru, amen.
Amen. We'll continue with a few minutes for silent prayer for the Amidah of Ne'ilah. This is the only Ne'ilah Amidah we have all year long. It is on page 398 and goes through page 406 if you want to follow along the text. Otherwise, just take a couple minutes to pray what's on your heart.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru.
Amen. You may be seated for one more English reading, and you should enjoy your being seated while you have it, because for the rest of Ne'ilah we will stay standing as we are able. But we will now have a reading from the Auguries of Innocence by William Blake.
Auguries of Innocence, Ne'ilah, by William Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and an eternity in an hour. A robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage. A dove house filled with doves and pigeons shudders hell through all its regions. A dog starved at his master's gate predicts the ruin of the state. A horse misused upon the road calls to heaven for human blood. Each outcry of the hunted hare a fiber from the brain does tear. A skylark wounded in the wing, a cherubim does cease to sing. It is right, it should be so. Man was made for joy and woe. And when this we rightly know, through the world we safely go. Joy and woe are woven fine, a clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. Every night and every morn, some to misery are born. Every morn and every night, some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to sweet delight, some are born to endless night. We are led to believe a lie when we see not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, when the soul slept in beams of light. God appears and God is light to those poor souls who dwell in night, but does a human form display to those who dwell in realms of day.
Thank you so much, Leslie. And as an introduction to the repetition of the Amidah in Ne'ilah, on page 407, El Nora Alila. 407.
El Nora Alila, Hamtelanu Mechila, Bisheata Ne'ilah, Te Mispar Keruim, Cha'ahinosim, ומסלדים בחילה בשעתה נעילה שופכים לך נפשם מחי פשעם וכחשם המתיהי מחילה בשעתה נעילה אל נורא עלילה אל נורא עלילה המתה לנו מחילה בשעתה נעילה היה להם לסתרה וחלצה ממארה וחותמים להוד גילה בשעתה נעילה חונותם ורחם וכל לוחץ ולוחם עשה בהם פלילה בשעתה נעילה אל נורא עלילה אל נורא המצא לנו מחילה, בשעתה נעילה, זכור צדקת אביהם, וחדש את ימיהם, כקדם ותחילה, בשעתה נעילה, קרנה שנת רצון, והשב שארית הצאן, לעוליבה ואוהלה, בשעתה נעילה, תזכו לשנים רבות, הבנים והבנות, בדיצה ובצולה, בשעתה נעילה, אל נורא עלילה, אל נורא עלילה, המצא לנו מחילה, בשעתה נעילה, אל נורא עלילה, אל נורא עלילה, המצא לנו מחילה, בשעתה נעילה.
May we, your children, celebrate with joy and gladness length of days merited in this closing hour. The repetition of the Amidah will begin on page 408. From this point until the end of the services, the ark will remain opened. If you are able to stand, we invite you to stand. If at any point you feel like you are no longer able to stand or you need to sit, please sit. Personal health comes first. Please take care of yourselves. And Barry, in the tradition that was handed down to him, will open the ark and stand by it.
Opening the Ark for Nila is an honor that was held by Louis Boxer for many, many years in this congregation. When he passed away in 1984, his wife and family asked me to continue doing it. And for quite a few years, they paid for the honor and had me do it. That disappeared. Now I pay for the honor and I do it.
Thank you, Barry. Page 408.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Ha'gadol, Ha'gibor, Ve'Hanora, Chasadim tovim bekonei hakol v'zocher chastei avod ve'imahot umehevi goel livnei v'neihem leman shemo Misor Chachamim Unvonim Umilemed Dat Mivinim Eftecha Fi Bitfilah U'Tachanunim Lechalot Ulchanein Pnei Melech Malei Rachamim Ahai 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 mochel v'soleach lavonim. Zochreinu lechayim, melech chafetz b'chayim, v'chot meheinu b'sefer hachayim, lemancha Elohim chayim.
Top of 409.
Melech ozer ufokeh umoshia umagen maharuch ata Adonai magen Avraham ufoked Sarah.
Amen.
Atagibor leolam Adonai mechayem etim atarav lehoshia mechalkel chayim mechesed mechayem etim berachamim rabim somech noflim verofei cholim umatir asurim umek hayim emunato lishehene afar michamocha bal gevurot umito melach melech mehemitu mechaye umatzmiach Yeshua mihi chamocha ahav harachamim zocher yetzurav lechayim berachamim v'nemanata lechayot meitim maruch ata Adonai mechaye ha-meitim.
Amen.
Yimloch Adonai leolam Elohayich Tzion ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ve'ata kadosh Yoshev tilo Yisrael elna.
On the top of page 14, the top two verses, Alex will say them in Hebrew and we will respond in English. So we'll repeat back to him in English on the top of 410. 410.
Shemahana selachna hayom avur kifana hayom unhalelcha nora ve'ayom kadosh.
Hear us, forgive us today, for the day is ending, and we shall praise you, awe-inspiring Holy One.
Uvecheinu lecha ta'ale kedusha ki ata Eloheinu melech mochel v'soleach.
Now may our sanctification rise up to you, for you, our God, are a forgiving and merciful sovereign. And we'll continue on page 412. No, I'm sorry, we'll continue on page 411.
Uvahem taratz v'tugdash kisod siach sarfei kodesh hamakdishim shimcha b'kodesh kakatuv ayad v'yecha v'karazel zeh v'amar
Kadosh Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot, Melech haaretz kevodo.
Kadosh, Kadosh, Adonai Tzvaot, Melech haaretz kevodo, kevodo, Malei olam, Mishartav shalim ze lazeh, Ahaye mekom kevodo, Lehumatam baruch yomeru.
Baruch kevod Adonai,
Baruch kevod Adonai, mimkomo, mimkomo, hu yifen berachamim, yachonam am yachadim shemo, erev avoker, bechol yom tamid, pamayim biava shema omerim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu, behu Yashmeinu berachamav shenit, li'einei kol chai, li'yod lachem le'Elohim.
Ani Adonai
Ani Adonai
Elohechem.
Adir Adirenu, Adonai Adonenu, Mahadir Shihimcha bechol haaretz, V'haya Adonai l'melech kol haaretz, Vayom hahu Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, U'v'divrei kodshecha, Katuv lemor.
Imoch Adonai leolam,
Imoch
Ohai
Adonai
Tzion,
leolam,
Ledor
Yitzion,
Vador,
Ledor Vador, Hallelujah. Ay, 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 ay.
Now we're on page 412.
Ledor vador nagid golecha ulenetzach netzachim kedushatcha naktish veshivcha Elohim mipun le'amosh le'olam va'ed ki melech gadol v'kadosh ata chamol al ma'asecha v'tismach b'ma'asecha v'yomru lecha chosecha b'tzadekcha amusecha tugash adon al kol ma'asecha Be'ein melitz yosher mul magid pesha Tagid li'akov dvar chok u'mishpat V'tzakenu b'mishpat Hamelech hamishpat U'v'chein tein pachtach Adonai Eloheinu al kol ma'asecha V'matcha al kol ma shebarata V'yarucha kol ha'masim V'yishtachabu lefanecha kol ha'beruim V'yasuchu l'amogudachad Ritzoncha b'levav shalem Kemo she'adenu Adonai Eloheinu shashilton lefanecha Oz biadcha ugvura biminecha veshimcha hanora al kol ma shebarata v'chein tein kavod Adonai le'amecha tehila li'reyecha v'tikva le'dorshecha ufitcha on pela mi'acha li'imlach simcha le'artzecha v'saso le'irecha u'tzmichat keren le'David avdecha Ner leven Yishai Meshichecha Bimhera v'yameinu Uvechein tzadikim Yeru v'yismachu V'yisharim yaloz v'chasidim Berina yagilu V'ola tatik pots p'yev v'chol risha kulan keshan tichle Ki tavir memshelet zadon Min ha'adet V'tim lo chata Adonai levadecha Al kol ma'asecha V'har Tzion Mishkan kevodecha V'yishalayim ir kodshecha Ka katu b'direi kodshecha Yimloch Adonai leolam Eloi Yisrael Ledor Vador Hallelujah Kadosh Ahata V'nora Shemecha V'ein Eloha Mibal Adecha Ka katuv V'yib Adonai Tzvaot B'mishpat V'el HaKadosh Nigdash B'tzedakah Baruch Ata Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh
Amen.
Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'amim ahavto otanu v'ratita banu v'romamtanu mikol ha'nishno v'kiddushanu v'mitzvotecha v'keravtanu malkeinu la'avodatecha v'shimcha v'kadosh aleinu karata v'titein lanu Adonai Eloheinu v'yava et yom ha'kippurim hazeh l'chila v'sicha l'chapara v'mchabal kol avonoteinu mikra kodesh Zeichel etziat Mitzrayim Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imoteinu ya'alev yavo v'yagia v'yira'eh v'yiratzeh v'yishama v'yivached v'yizacher zichronenu v'yigdonenu v'zichron avoteinu v'imoteinu v'zichron Mashiach ben David avdecha v'zichron Yerushalayim ir kadshecha v'zichron kol amcha be'Yisrael ifleita l'tova v'cheinu chesed rachamim chayim shalom B'yom ha'kippurim hazeh Zachreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova
Amen.
Ufakteinu bo livracha
Amen.
V'hoshienu bo l'chayim
Amen.
Uvidvar Yeshua v'rachamim Chus v'chanenu v'rachem aleinu v'hoshienu Ki elecha einenu Ki el melech hanun v'rachumata
And on the top of page 414, once again, Alex will say the bolded lines and we will read them back to him in English.
Etach lanu shar b'heit ne'ilat shar ki fanayom
Keep open the gate for us at the time of the closing of the gate, for the day is coming to an end.
Hayom yifneh Hashemesh yavo ve'yifneh navo ashe'arecha
The day will come to an end. Soon the sun will set. Let us come into your gates.
Anahelna sana silachna mechalna chamalna rachemna kaperna kivoshchet v'yavon
God, we pray, turn to us, forgive us, pardon us, have mercy upon us, have compassion on us, grant us atonement, conquer sin and transgression. Bottom of 414.
כמו ויצב עמו שם תאזין שבתנו ודקשיב מנו מאמר כיום ויקרא בשם אדוני
415.
ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נוצר חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקי וסלחת על עווננו וחטאתנו נחלתנו סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך כרחם אבל בנים כן תרחם אדוני אלוהינו לאדוני הישועה לעמך ברכתך סלע אדוני צבאות עמנו משכב לנו יעקב סלע אדוני צבאות אשר אדם בוטח בך אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ויום קראנו סלח נא לעוונם הזה כגודל חסדך בך אשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ביד הנה ושם נאמר
ויאמר אדוני סלחתי
ויאמר אדוני
כדבריך
סלחתי כדבריך
And we'll continue on page 418 with Lech Besimcha. If you look at the words of the refrain on this one, Lech Besimcha Chol Lachmecha Ushtei Belev Tov Yenecha. Go forth joyfully and with a full heart, partake of your meal and drink your wine. We got a couple more minutes for that part, but we're getting into the spirit of things.
Lech besimcha, echol lachmecha, ushtei lev tov yehinecha, elon hiada, bihim romecha, shma enkat, emunecha, uvaseh, et amecha salachti et zidonecha leich besimcha echol lachmecha ushetei lev tov yehinecha miterem malot shemesh lime onno bamrohomim v'yad lo yavo emesh hagshev siyach temimim v'chol pisheim hamesh v'tashkiyim mitohomim v'tzorei motuhur hachmesh v'charoho nafuze yamim uleaham kafuf bechermesh Tahashmiya behekorachamim kum lamazeh beheimim atanofel al panecha leich besimcha echol lachmecha ushetei lev tov yehinecha sharei ratzon petacha le'aham kenu legorach ulechol chatach halamsacha Elohim chai berov gadlach hanes mehem anacha v'shor kihem pa'olach Lohach brit shelacha legarbi b'hachar telechavlach v'chish lehashmiyo besimcha behod noam milulach ahami b'hachar alach ve'elama nahaflu fanecha Leich besimcha echol lachmecha ushetei lev tov yehinecha Leich besimcha echol lachmecha ushetei lev tov yehinecha.
And we'll continue on page 419 at the top of the page. Again, the two bolded verses. Alex will say them in Hebrew. We will respond in English.
Rachemna kehaladad yeshurun slach umechal avonam lehoshienu Elohei yisheinu.
Have mercy on the community of Jeshurun, forgive and pardon their sin, and save us, O God of all salvation.
Shadei shamayim petach, me'ohotzar chatov lanu tiftach, tohoshia veriv al timtach, vehoshienu Elohei yisheinu.
Open the gates of heaven and open for us your goodly treasure. Save us and do not press your quarrel with us. Save us, God of our salvation. Continue on 419.
El melech yoshev al kisei rachamim. El horei talanu lomar shloshes zechar lanu hayom berich shloshes kemo shodata mikedem kemo shekatu vayered Adonai banan vayatse bimosham vayikra v'shem Adonai Vayavor Adonai al panav Vayikra Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum
Vechanun Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet Notzer Chesed La'alafim Nosei Avon V'Fesha
V'chata V'nakei V'salachta Lavonenu U'chatatenu Nechaltanu Slach lanu Avinu Chatanu Mechalanu Malkeinu Ki Fashanu Ki Ata Adonai Tohov Vesahalach Verav Chesed Lechol Korecha.
Page 420.
Eloheinu v'lehavotenu v'imotenu silach lanu mechalanu kapelanu ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu anu vanecha ve'ata avinu anu avadecha ve'ata Adonenu anu kehalecha ve'ata chelkeinu anu nachlatecha ve'ata goraleinu anu tzonecha ve'ata roeinu anu charmecha ve'ata notreinu anu fiulatecha ve'ata yotreinu anu rayatecha ve'ata dodeinu anu segulatecha ve'ata kiroveinu anu amecha ve'ata malkeinu anu mamirecha ve'ata mamireinu anu azefanim ve'ata rachum v'chanun anu kishay oref ve'ata erech apayim anu mle'avon ve'ata malei rachamim anu yameinu ketzel over ve'ata ushnotecha lo yitahamu.
So in just a moment, we'll prepare to go into the last round of the Ashamnu and the Ahavnu, our own prayers of personal confession. And during those, I'll invite you to tap on your chest, as we do for the Ashamnu, and really open up and let out whatever last little bits you need to let out. Remember whatever last good deeds you want to call up in your own memory and favor. And to prepare us for that, I just want to share one last poem for the evening. This is by Annie Lightheart. It's called A Great Wild Goodness. One morning, I was looking out the window when a great wild goodness came over me. I wanted to be kind to everything. I promised not to kill the big spider on the wall. In the cold, I took the dog for the long walk she'd been wanting. I fetched a trash can lid for an ornery neighbor and did not just then add a single adjective to his name. I went back inside to the laundry and dishes with a clean heart such as I have never had. Before dinner, the wild goodness shouted, "Too tame, too tame!" So I went outside without my coat and shouted poems up to the stars until my children came home with their small warm hands. Then we ate bread in the kitchen, unafraid to be happy. The stars in wild darkness were right over our heads. Page 420.
Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imotenu tavo lefanecha tfilatenu ve'al titala mitchinatenu shein anachnu azifanim uksheir aflo var lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imotenu tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu aval anachnu v'avotenu v'imotenu chatanu
421.
Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Gabagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, Yatsnu Rakizavnu, Latsnu Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Oref, Roshanu, Shechatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu.
On the back inside cover of your machzors, the
Ahavnu, Berachnu, Gadalnu, Dibarnu Yofi, Helinu, Vechasnu, Zeraznu, Chamalnu, Tipachnu Emet, Yatsnu Tov, Kibadnu, Lamadnu, Machalnu, Nichamnu, Salalnu, Orarnu, Palnu, Tzadaknu, Kivinu la'aretz, Richamnu, Shakadnu, Tamachnu, Taramnu, Tikahanu.
And back on page 422.
Eloheinu
Bottom of the
v'le'avoteinu
page.
v'imotenu mechala avonotenu b'yom ha'kippurim hazeh mecheva v'er pshecha v'chatotecha mineged einecha ka'amor anochi u'mocheh pshecha lamani v'chatotecha lo esker v'ne'emar machiticha pshecha v'chenan chatotecha shuva elai ki ga'alticha v'ne'emar ki v'yom hazeh yechaper alechem L'tar etchem mikol chatoteichem Lifnei Adonai Tihitaru Eloheinu V'le'avoteinu v'imotenu Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tein chalkenu v'toratecha Sabenu mituvecha v'tzchamchenu b'shuvatecha
423.
Libenu Le'ovdecha b'yemet Ki ata solchan Yisrael U'mochalan l'shivtei Yisrael mechal dor vador U'milbadecha ein lanu melech Mocha v'soleach Ela ata baharu Chata Adonai Melech Mocha v'soleach La'avonotenu v'la'avonot Beit Yisrael Ma'avir ashmotenu V'chol shana v'shana Melech al kol ha'aretz Mekadesh Yisrael V'yom ha'kippurim
Amen.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael uv'tfilatam b'ashevet ha'avodah libir beitecha v'utfilatam b'avat kabel ratzon u'teil ratzon tamid avodah Yisrael amecha v'techazena eined shuchatzion b'rachamim baruch ata Adonai amachazir shchinato letzion
Amen. Modim anachnu lach. Middle of 423.
Hatov kiluchal rachamecha, v'ramachem glutam uchasadecha me'olam, ki v'hinu lach, v'al kulam itbarach min ram shimcha malkenu tamid, le'olam va'ed, avinu malkenu zechor rachamecha, kvosh chasra v'chalei dever v'cherev v'ra u'shvit, u'mashchit v'avon u'shma u'magefa, u'fegara v'chol machala v'chol tikala v'chol ketata v'chol minei, pur aniyah v'chol gezerah ra'ah v'sinat chinam me'aleinu. Umeal kol v'nehei v'nitecha.
L'chatom, l'chaim
L'chatom, l'chaim tovim. Kol v'nehei v'nitecha. V'chol achahayim yoducha sela v'yelu et shimcha be'emet. Ha'el yeshuateinu v'rzotenu sela. Baharuch atah Adonai. Atov shimcha l'chanael lehodah.
Amen.
Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu v'imotenu barcheinu b'avracha hamshulesh et bakterach tuvah yedei Moshe avdecha hamurami piron uvanav konim amtoshecha ka'amur yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha
Kein yiratzon.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha
Kein yiratzon.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom
Kein yiratzon.
Sim shalom ba'olam tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha barchenu avinu kulanu kecha b'rabbenecha ki b'rabbenecha tatalanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat Chaim Yavad Chesed Utzedakah Uvracha v'rachamim v'chaim shalom v'tov beinecha l'vrechet m'cha Yisrael b'chol eit uv'chol shah b'shlomecha v'sefer chaim b'racha v'shalom u'farnasa tova Nizacher v'neichateim lefanecha Anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael L'chaim tovim u'shalom Baruch atah Adonai Oseh shalom.
Amen. Page 426, perhaps the pinnacle of Ne'ilah, the final set of Avinu Malkeinu. We'll do the alternative Avinu Malkeinu. And when we get to the bold verses at the bottom of page 426, you'll notice that we're repeating after Alex the word chotmenu, which is translated here as inscribed, but usually goes as sealed. So this is our final plea to get sealed into all of the good books. 426.
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Geulav Yeshua
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Geulav Yeshua
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Parnasa V'Chalkala
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Parnasa V'Chalkala
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Zichuyo
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Zechuyo
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Slicha Umchila
Avinu Malkeinu Chotmenu B'Sefer Slicha Umechila. We'll continue on 427.
No train, Avinu Malkeinu Chaneinu Vaneinu Avinu Malkeinu Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu.
The ark is closed. Yasher koach to Barry and Alex and everyone else. If you want to be seated for this Kaddish Shalem on page 428, that is totally okay.
Yitkada ve'yikada shemei rabba.
Amen.
Be'alma divera kirute ve'yamlich malchute ve'chayechonu v'yomechon uve'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala uvizman kari ve'immeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mehevarach le'olam u'lam me'olmaya Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar v'yitramam ve'yitnaseh ve'yittadar v'yitaleh ve'yitala shemei dekudsha li'ela mikol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru
Amen.
Titkabel teloton uba'uton dechol Yisrael kadam avuhon di bishmaya ve'immeru amen. Yehi shlam harav amishmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'immeru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'immeru amen.
So there's a matter of some dispute as to what comes next, but the consensus among Barry, Alex, and I was that we're going to do Havdalah first, so that when you hear the sound of the shofar at the end, you can go straight down and take that with you into the first bite of your bagel. So I'm going to invite everyone to come closer to the front of the room for Havdalah. I'm also going to invite, if anyone knows how to turn off the lights and could turn off the sanctuary lights, as we come to the front of the room, bring your machzors so you can go along with the last lines. We'll say Havdalah, and then we will do the final verses and the shofar blowing. Joel, do you mind passing those around throughout? Oops. And if you could just kind of pass a couple of these around for the spices. All right, so I'm going to do Havdalah, unless you want to.
I'm happy to. Okay.
Yeah. Hine el Yeshuati eftach velo efchad ki aziv ezimratya Adonai vayhi li Yeshua ushaftem mayim besason mimayne ha-Yeshua L'Adonai ha-Yeshua alamcha birchatecha sela Adonai tzvot imanu miskav lanu le'Yaakov sela Adonai tzvot ashrei adam poteach bach Adonai Hoshia hamelech yaneinu v'yom koreinu Vayhudim hayta rav simcha v'sason v'ikar kein tielanu kos yishrot esav v'shem Adonai ekra savri baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. And if you could pass around those sachets that were handed out. Yep, we're good. Candle knew it was its turn next. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil bein kodesh l'chol bein or l'choshech bein Yisrael amim bein yom hashvi l'sheshir me'amaseh Baruch atah Adonai, hamavdil bein kodesh lecho. And we'll sing Shavua Tov after the shofar. But for now, we turn to page 429, and I will turn it back over to Alex and Barry to take us through the final calls and the final shofar blast of this high holiday season. Alex says it, we repeat back to him.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Adonai Hu HaElohim. 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 Tekiah Gedolah.
Yasher Koach. Yasher Koach to Alex, to Barry, to Sharon, to Jerry, to Eve, to Noah, to everyone, to Reverend Ann, to everyone who helped make services go, and to all of you for making services go from that side back up to us. We really appreciate it. And thank you. There's a million other people. I apologize for not thanking all of them. I need to thank Bonnie and her Breakfast crew, who I can't name all of by name, but Bonnie will name them all by name after we've all gotten something to drink and eat. Please join us for Breakfast. Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful Yom Kippur. Thank you again to Alex. Shana Tova,
Thank you,
Shavua
everyone.
Tov,
Shana
and we'll
Tova.
see you downstairs. For what? Oh. We did good, man. We were done with Avinu Malkeinu on time.
And we know we were.
Good work, Barry.
Like with the English reading
No
and
one's
stuff,
paying
it's just
attention.
you can't.
You can't do Havdalah before it's over, so it's all good.
No, I think it was okay. I feel
I
good
was
that I
a little-
finished
plus
before the
this
fast
watch,
ended.
This watch is like 3 minutes fast.
Oh, okay.
so,
I feel
yeah.
much better. Plus or minus 5 minutes. Yashikov, man.
Oh. Yeah.
Good job. That was great. Yeah.
Yasher Koach, Alex.
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana
You can
Tova.
unmute if you
Shana
want
Tova.
to and say hi to each other. Thank you for being here.
Yasher Koach, Alex.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Eddie. Hi, Sue. Yeah, you're on, you have to unmute. Yeah, we can't hear a word. You have to unmute. Yeah, you have to unmute. So we spoke to Emily, I think, yesterday. She was with her stepsons to be. It was lovely. Yeah, we can't hear you, Sue. Yeah, you're muted. It's okay. Happy New Year. We love your family. Okay, bye-bye.